Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. This video is a little bit off my own particular beaten path as far as the content that I create, but it's definitely very relevant in my life, and personal finance is relevant in everybody's lives, whether we like it or not. Money is an interesting word and thing. Some people say, does money really actually exist? Well, I'm gonna say in the world that we live in, yes. How you define money is a very interesting thing, but what I'm gonna define money as, because it's kind of an elusive term in some ways, is it is leverage. Money is leverage, and leverage gives you the opportunity to do more things, to have more things that you can do, I guess you could say, and have more luxury. I don't think money is evil. They say money is the root of, I think in the Bible it says that the love of money is the root of all evil. So money itself, power itself, money can give you a certain type of power. The power itself is not evil, it's how you're able to handle it, really. I think it magnifies what may already exist. With that said, one of the reasons that I wanted to make this video is I want to create value where I can and pass on whatever information that I'm able to try and be of assistance to people out there. I saw an article recently that millennials are on the fast track to a financial crisis when it comes to retirement because millennials are not saving. And it can be a rude awakening for a person to wake up one day, realize they don't have any money, and go, what the heaven am I gonna do, right? So there's not enough financial education out there. I personally grew up playing sports. I had the mindset that if I put everything into football, that everything will just work out and I'll figure it out later, right? So I didn't really save much. I took a personal finance class my senior year of high school, actually, which was a good primer. And I remember, my teacher was kind of, in my opinion, kind of a square, right? And she's like, you should have a budget and you should be going by your budget. And I'm like, I don't have budgets. Budgets are for losers, right? Because it's like, I want to live in the moment. I don't want to waste my time worrying about saving and calculating. I want to live my life. The rest will, I'll figure it out. It'll be all right, And I think there's always a balance in life. But my goal here is to give you a brief introduction. It's really for beginners and intermediate. The multimillionaires out there already know this, or they've inherited the money and they don't know how their family got it. And they're doing much. Some of them are doing maybe more complex strategies. Some of them may be watching this video going, wow, this is perfect. It's good to have a refresher, and some of these principles are exactly what I need to keep moving forward. In my opinion, money is a living entity. It is just like a muscle in your body. It's an organism that has life. Money does not stay stagnant. A dollar fluctuates in its value over time due to inflation and deflation in the world markets. For example, I was talking to some people from Britain recently, and the currency exchange rate is currently very bad for people over in England versus us. So right now is a great time for an American tourist to go over there and get your most money, get the biggest bang for your buck if you're going to be spending money at a place like that. I think part of that is due to Brexit. So just know that there are constant fluctuations going on in the value of money. The only thing that really is ironclad in its value are resources like gold, silver, whatever, anything that has tangible value that you can trade if shit hits the fan and the world markets collapse, right? If there's an Armageddon or everything, the stock market crashes like there was when the Great Depression, people resort to trading, barter, essentially, right? That's a scary time, so hopefully that doesn't happen. But we all have to keep in mind with financial education that the stock market can crash at any point, and that any of that stuff really can happen. So when you do have a life savings, or you have everything invested in certain accounts, you do have to know that there is that little bit of risk that you're taking, and you're playing the bigger game, I guess, and you have to be willing to take that risk. I know someone who keeps their money in a mattress, right? Because she thinks that she doesn't trust banks, she doesn't trust the whole system, investors and things like that. She's like, I've worked very hard for this money, I'm gonna hold all this money right here. And that's one way of looking at it, but what I told her is, just know that your money is devaluing over time. It's essentially rotting the way a muscle would if you're not working it out and giving it life and nutrients and things like that. Her money is essentially devaluing over the course of time, and the least risky thing she should consider doing, if nothing else, is at least putting it in either a savings account with a low interest or a savings bond, right? Those are just about as secure of a move you can make with very little risk. You want it to be backed up by the FDIC, any of these banks. Don't just put it in don't just give it to somebody that says, hey, I work for a bank. Be smart. I'm not going to tell you what banks to go to, but at least be smart enough to know who, to know that you're going to a bank. A lot of football players, another reason I made this video, and I don't want to jump around much, but a lot of my friends who went off and played in the NFL, I heard that when NFL football players get their first checks, a lot of guys are looking at it going, yo, what is this? Like, why is so much of my money, my paycheck, being taken out to, what is this, taxes? So a lot of people don't even know what taxes are, or tax brackets and things like that, and not manipulating in a corrupt way, but navigating correctly for yourself in a fully legal way, making sure that you're not overpaying your taxes. Because if you overpay, there's nobody on the government's end going, oh, you overpaid. Sometimes, right? It's up to you and the person who handles your taxes to make sure you're doing them right, legally, but not spending too much when you shouldn't have to overspend on your taxes, unless you just want to. If you want to give the government free money as a gift, I'm sure that the United States government appreciates it, because we're in a massive debt right now. So that's the backstory on why I am creating this. I mentioned before, money is living. There's a difference between hard cash, right? When you see a bank robber go into a bank and get cash, that is that as liquid as it possibly can be. That's the most liquid form. It's untraceable. A lot of people get paid under the table who work in the service industry, so they don't have to pay taxes when it comes to claiming their tips. Some people do that, some people don't, but just know it's a very liquid form. It's not traceable. That's why a lot of bad guys do transferring of cash in briefcases, and it's valuable enough for them to, unfortunately, do some bad things, and some people value that money more than life, which I don't, and I don't think it's healthy to value money more than life. But nevertheless, equities or something called equity is the ownership of something, an asset that's more non-liquid, right? It's something where sometimes you can't just necessarily sell everything you own just like that. There's a process depending on what it is, and that can take time to sell, but it can be worth quite a bit depending on whatever type of ownership we're talking about. So with that said, I wanted to talk about the first point that's very important. I've done a lot of talking already, but I think it's very important for everybody, no matter where you are, what stage of the game, if you're 15, if you're 22, if you're 44, whatever it is, you should know what your net worth is. And there are easy and free resources out there. Mint.com actually is one that I use. It's free. You can put your banking, checking accounts, basically your assets versus your liabilities. Just like any company out there, what it is that you have and own, and then the things that you owe. Obviously, you want your net worth to be positive, and If you're on the journey, you want it to be as high positive as possible. You want it to grow. Being in the negative end is where a lot of young college students start out, right? You go to college, you take out these big loans, and you put yourself in debt. It's an investment, you could call it, so that you can go out, get a better paying job, and eventually pay things back. Some people take decades to pay off their student loans. Some people never pay them off. So it's always a risk when you take out a loan, but the goal is to have your net worth be positive. So I started off negative when I got out of college. I had some student loans that I had to pay off, and I have paid off my student loans. It was my second job that allowed me to get to the point where I was able to pay off my student loans. So if you're at that point, the goal is to get out of debt as fast as possible and to be building good credit, right? So I recommend 3 things. 1, get out of debt as fast as possible. Try not to get in debt unless it's something important like a student loan and you actually know what you want to do with your life. That's a whole nother video, which is figuring out what you want to do when you grow up. Some people watching this right now might be millionaires and they still don't know what they want to do when they grow up. Makes it a lot easier though if you are, because you can live off the money while you're figuring it out, or for the rest of your life. Nevertheless though, get out of debt, build good credit, and save. Those are the 3 things. If I could give immediate advice, you can write those down. Get out of debt as soon as possible, or eliminate the opportunity of getting in debt or further in debt. Have good credit. The way that you get good credit is by having the less credit cards you have, the better, and using those credit cards and paying them off immediately. What you don't want to do is go past the grace period where you're getting charged interest fees for a few reasons. 1, it damages your credit. 2, you're gonna be owing more and more money. You're going further and further in debt the longer you take to pay off these things. You're gonna have discipline. It's like a diet, essentially, for your nutrition of your body. Money, if used properly, can help you be more nutritionally sound, whatever you want to call it, because it gives you the opportunity to buy better food, to feed your body, whatever. So that's my first point, which is pay off credit cards immediately if you're going to have them open. Limit the number of credit cards that you have, and be smart. Don't be buying a 55-inch flat screen TV, smart TV, by putting yourself further and further in debt when you don't need that. Limit the luxuries while you're building your wealth from negative to positive. The more positive it becomes, the more it can be justified. In my opinion, this is just my humble opinion, but when you're in debt, don't spend money on luxuries. Don't worry about looking cool. Don't be buying Lamborghinis. Don't go out your first job when you get your first job after school and say, I'm gonna buy a BMW and lease it, or leasing might be better than buying, actually. In fact, that brings a different point, which is if it floats or flies, lease it, right? But just be smart. Don't go out and buy a BMW on payments when you get your first job to celebrate because you're excited, and then put yourself more into debt, right? You should be driving some POS, not worrying about how cool you are, because that stuff is superficial anyway. You don't want to create the perception of financial stability. You just want to be financially stable. That is so much stronger, and it will serve you 1,000 times over better than flossing your Gucci suit and not actually having anything to your name. So those are a couple pieces of advice.